So the goal, well, we had talked about, okay, because we couldn't plan together like we had hoped, we could at least maybe do another cycle focusing on some of the things we had pointed out with the previous coaching cycle from the Danielson. And keeping in mind that the whole reason why we're doing this is for me to practice being a coach, but also for you to have the opportunity to, stop and take a look at some data from your classroom and have a collegial conversation about how it went and considerations for what could have gone differently, if anything, and or how that can be influencing in what you do next time.
Yeah, sounds good.
Cool.
Definitely.
So we had talked about two aspects of the Danielson model. One was, initially you had talked about questioning and discussion techniques, and you had wondered about where are there points where I can make discussion go deeper? Can I over scaffold a discussion? And then are my students seeking perspectives of others 100%? But then we realized that often, no matter what, you're trying to do this aspect right here, which is engaging students in learning.
Mm-hmm.
And, thinking about the activities and assignments and how they're structured or how you're grouping students, the kinds of materials and resources you're using, and then the structure and pacing. So the questioning and discussion techniques and the engaging students in learning was what I was thinking about when I was reading through the data I collected.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so I was in your classroom last week for the end of one block and the beginning of another block, and I just typed what I saw. There were points where you were doing an action, I sort of just wrote what the action was as opposed to exactly what you said, because often you had a slide up and you were reading what the slide said, so you were sort of multimodal in terms of trying to access your students. So maybe I said, teacher's doing X, Y, or Z instead of what you were saying exactly.
Right.
So yeah, does that sound like an okay thing to focus on again for this post-conference? Those two aspects?
Yeah, you said these. You focused on this.
This and the engaging students in learning.
So, point out which two you said?
Just this whole broad category and this whole broad category.
Yeah, that's what I understood. Sounds good.
Great. Awesome. So, shall we take a couple minutes to just look through the transcript a little bit and take some notes? And what I'll do is I'll keep this up here so you can just sort of look at those aspects if you want. And maybe some points where you see this happening in a way that you were hoping for, and then maybe some points where you want to talk through it a little bit.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Awesome. Cool. I need to grab that ready. Ready?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so maybe share one thing that you noticed.
I noticed that I struggled with pacing for this lesson, for sure. That was my big takeaway. Well, I didn't get through the lesson.
Okay.
And I didn't have a timer. I really need to buy a timer for my room because the time wasn't consistent for each gallery walk. And then this is helpful here because I see that students also had a minute of downtime for the majority of stations that they were at. So if I had structured that gallery walk for smaller segments, it would have been better. And the online timer on the board is hard because if internet is out, it doesn't work. So I think that was I feel like pacing was difficult here. Structure and pacing of the lesson was difficult for me.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I recorded those times because I wondered myself, some students, just my sitting at one table might have made them rush a little bit, and I didn't know if I was having some kind of effect, though I wasn't interacting with them. But here I'm walking over to this table with this lady sitting here, I don't know. So I was like, I'll just write it down. I don't know if that was necessarily happening at every table, though. It was just happening right there.
Yeah.
And I noticed that it happened for two groups, but then there was a group where there was no downtime.
Right.
At all.
And this was a shorter time period. I don't know if you noticed.
I thought so.
Rushing.
Yeah, I noticed that you were like, class is ending. I
Yeah.
better push this along a little bit.
Yeah.
But what I mean, regardless though, I don't know if you picked up on this, but maybe sometimes you might have been focused on the pacing a little bit. If we're getting at, I don't know, these quality of questions, points of deeper discussion, I saw a couple of places where, regardless of the fact that maybe the pacing was off, that activity really elicited some self-reflection in students with their models.
Yeah, it did.
Like, oh, tectonic plates, we hadn't really thought about that.
Right.
Or we should do inner core and outer core like this group did, So there were some moments in there where, who knows, it could have been researcher impact on those students moving quickly, but regardless, they were sort of picking up on some of these key pieces that I think you were hoping they might.
Yeah, I think they were too. I think it definitely effectively brought out prior knowledge of kids, and also gave them exposure, or points of what's the word where you activate the learning that they had seen somewhere,
right?
But they can't quite access it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I did see that around, they were thinking about pressure from some of them too, was another one. But it was also very because it was an introductory activity, I wondered if it was deep enough, or if it wasn't.
Well, how much time total did you spend on that? That's probably what?
We spent...
It was probably not so long, actually.
Yeah.
It was probably 8 minutes.
Yeah, I think it was 8 to 10 minutes or something. Yeah.
I don't know. I for that
So
time
not bad
investment and getting them to come up with these, A, reflective statements about their own models, and B, evaluating other models.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pretty impactful 8 minutes for you to have those questions for your board to pull from.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm interested. It seems and I want to be in this culture of giving students ownership to make the right choice. And that's something I'm fearful to let go of, because particularly for 9th grade students who don't I guess I worry about classroom management. I worry about my ability to manage a class and them picking their own seats. And I also really feel that it gets stale. Groups get stale, and it can be really, if you're sitting next to somebody for the whole year, it's not good. So yeah, I'm interested to what you think and how I can be more open, what I can do differently. I mean, it is time consuming to do a seating chart. I don't really like to do it.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where that came from.
I was most strategic about my seating when the project depended upon the groups heavily.
Yeah.
I have seen, several models can work just on a day-to-day basis. The group that had no downtime, I know it was a shorter segment of time, but they used that time really, really well. They were highly functional. Yeah. And, the worry is that when you say something like this, that message gets sent there as well, So I think it's totally appropriate if you see a combination of kids who choose to sit together, say, you know what, you just walk up at the beginning of class. Last time I saw that you guys did not manage this well. So I'm going to ask you to sit over here for this class. I'm going to ask you to sit over here. We'll try this again later, but just for today, I'm separating you because I saw that behavior. And so then you're targeting those particular students. Yeah. Other kids in the class know that you're managing it. Yeah. And it's not just a blanket statement for everybody in the class. Sometimes that can be enough. It's just a couple of kiddos that you just need to make sure you keep separate. But
yeah, it's good that you bring that up, I think.
I've become really acutely aware of how, now that I'm in the classroom as a observer more frequently, how, one of the greatest gifts a teacher can give a class, beyond wonderful experiences, beyond wonderful content, beyond wonderful relationships, it's just behavior management. For these kids, it it's a painful thing to be in class after class, where a teacher just is not managing that behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you feel like that's the best way you can do it is just set these seating charts, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to get the most they can from the class.
Yeah.
You can also be strategic about it, right? Just pulling those two kids aside. But as soon as there are, consistent distractions that are not being managed by a teacher, that also reduces students' sense of your efficacy in the classroom. So, I mean, by doing this, you definitely said it to everyone. You're like, this didn't work, So they heard, they also heard the message that you're holding everyone accountable. So it was like, it's two sides to that, right?
Yeah.
So it's not, I'm not saying it's a negative thing that you did that. I'm just saying that, A, it's blanket, but B, it also allows them to know you're holding everybody accountable. So there's a couple ways to handle that.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely, using positive, framing comments positively, I feel like is always the way to go.
Yeah, and you're really good at that. I've seen that, yeah.
Even if I take, even by not owning up is not the right word, but I'm making it a public recognition at the start of class, and singling out the students who were a distraction impacts less, it has a impact on, it's a more targeted impact is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Which is what you said. So yeah, that's a good point. I wonder how much, I can tell that students they're antsy to change their seats, and perhaps that's a sign that they really don't need a seating chart with you guys. But it'd be great to take the course.
I've taken it several times, and I learn something new every time I go.
Yeah.
So cool. So next, do you want me to come in and watch you try to do a summary table a little bit? And
yes.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Cool.
I'm a little worried about where I'm going to put it.
Ooh, yeah. Well, you have whiteboards that slide.
I know. You should have seen Seamus's reaction. He was so impressed. He was like, why doesn't every teacher have that? That's amazing.
It is really great. That's the one great thing about that room. I love that about that room.
Yeah. So I have my driving question board right in front, but I could, I don't know what, I could move it, or I could cover it in paper, or I could just use the whiteboard. Probably just move the driving question board.
Yep.
Thanks for letting me talk all of that out.
Sure. Anytime.
This is really helpful. Yes.
Great. So yeah, I'd love to come in and see how that goes, the summary table, and maybe we can talk through that a little bit. That'd be fun.
Okay.